Planning the Land Use of Land for the 21st Century. Harvey M. Jacobs presents a postmodern challenge to the scientific, rational land use planning model that has prevailed in this century. With quotation, he states that, in general, the mission of the postmodern land use planning professional is to acknowledge that land use planning is not and cannot be a technocratic scientific exercise. Instead, Jacobs asserts that postmodernism land use planning should focus not just on the ecological concerns of land, but also on serving as a stage to resolve complex social and political issues. This expression of transformation in the political and social world is mirrored in other fields and goes by another name, postmodernism. It arose in the architecture as a way to design. It seemed to reflect an eclectic anything goes style. The concern of postmodernism is the whole project of modernism or modernity, the multi-century project we have collectively engaged in to create a modern world. Postmodernism seeks to observe, critique, and reframe this project. Most importantly, postmodernism is a critique of our paradigm for understanding, organizing, and acting upon the world. The postmodern challenge. So, what has been the postmodern challenge to this model? It has one main theme: the rise of a diverse, populist citizens' movement in land use planning. The citizens' movement challenges the presumption of experts' preeminent knowledge, the need for perfect knowledge and information to plan for land, the use of rationality and scientific method as the only means of informing land use planning decisions, the inevitable need to centralize resource management to achieve sound resource objectives. This movement makes clear that land use is a social and political resource as well as an ecological one. The context for this example will be the land use issues of the urban fringe in the United States. One of the things that will be confirmed by 1990 census is that America's urban fringe suburbia finally has become the dominant demographic place of the United States. While America's rural places have not been primary since 1920, in the intervening 70 years we have one to think of ourselves as an urban nation even though it's reflected our population base rather than our land use pattern. For the immediate future, this will lead to change again as we acknowledge that the land use and social pattern that has endeared itself to America's masses and been the subject of long-standing lampoons is now the paramount one. Each case the issue came to prominence largely because citizens seeking the good life in urban fringe challenged the prevailing wisdom of professionals, their paradigms, methods, assumptions, and values. Agricultural land protection. We are all aware of the figures about the rate of conversion of agricultural and to non-agricultural uses in the post-World War II period. It came to prominence by citizens challenging the conventional wisdom of agricultural economics and agricultural economists over the disappearance of prime agricultural land to shopping malls and housing developments. The conventional wisdom of these professionals suggested that there was no problem with the convention of this land because land as a resource was being substituted by technological and managerial innovations. Historically, this analysis is correct. The decline in the farm population and the shifting pattern of agricultural land use has not resulted in a decline in farm output, just the opposite. Fewer farmers are producing more food products more efficiently. Rather, agricultural land protection is an issue to be assessed on its landscape, aesthetic, and quality of life attributes. The wide-ranging existence of agricultural land protection as an urban fringe land use planning issue represents a poignant example of the conflict between the judgments of professionals and citizens. Sustainable agriculture. A similar story exists with the issue of sustainable agriculture. This is a subject that was largely brought to the public policy agenda by citizens concerned with the elements other than classic economic efficiency as the basis for agricultural production. Instead, the upshot. What does all this mean for land use planning? We are suspended between modernism and postmodernism. There are three trends shaping the future of land use planning. Land use planning, particularly on the urban fringe, will become even more plural. More individuals and more groups will assert more interest in land use planning, and all of them will argue, with even more sophistication, that their perspective on the public interest is the appropriate one. Land use planning will become even more conflictual among these individuals and groups and among the groups and land professionals. Land use planning will become even more political. The era of land use planning dominated by professionals is over, if it was ever really here. What examples of postmodern land practice? With regard to agricultural land protection, much of the citizens' interest in the landscape and the aesthetic qualities of agricultural land. Farmland needs farmers who can farm for a living. Farmland protection needs to be part of a larger program directed at the health of the local or regional farm economy, the land use options available for future generations of users, the viability of farming for the next generation of farmers, and especially at the urban fringe, the availability of moderate priced housing. What this means for professional practice is that the analysis that gets performed in the land use planning needs to change. This analysis needs to reflect not just ecological characteristics of land, but also its social characteristics. Land use planning at the urban fringe is an exercise in social planning masked as a technical planning. To be truly successful, we must recognize it as such and act accordingly. At the same time, though, we must remember that the land needs to endure. As we plan, we must be certain that its interests also are accounted for.